welcome to the Mindset Playground, where you're going to get your daily dose of positivity. And I'm your host, LouAnne Hunt. And I am so excited that you've joined me here today on the playground because I have a friend who wants to come to Canada, who wants to move to Canada. And I will be so excited if she really doesn't chicken out. But I think after all the snow, she may have a slight change in her thoughts. But it'll be fun to talk to her about it no matter what, because she is so much fun. And I am privileged to call her my friend. So, Stefany, welcome to the Mindset Playground. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much. I am doing great. It's not snowing here, but oh my gosh, I'm excited. I'm so excited to be here on this platform. So thank you so much. And I'm honored to be your friend as well.
Aw, I know it's funny how I have been so blessed and so lucky for the different people that I'm meeting with this Mindset Playground. I'm so I'm so blessed, like I said, and not to repeat myself, but it's true. And I happened to be introduced to you because somebody thought that maybe we would have some things in common and we might want to meet. And wow, our first conversation was definitely a great conversation. So I'm excited for my guests to get to know you because I have loved getting to know you myself, and I know that you have a lot to give. So let's get started.
Excited. Yes, let's get started.
So, first of all, I know that I've already heard a little bit about your background, but will you share with the audience, like, what brought you to this point in your life? Like, where did you come from, and what are some of your philosophies?
Oh my gosh. I think one philosophy I definitely live by is that I am a firm believer if you can dish it, you can take it. So that is one of my firm beliefs. If you can dish it, you can take it. Um, well, where I come from, oh my gosh. So of course I'm in the States, right? I'm in the United States. I'm actually originally from Starkville, Mississippi. It's a tiny town in the heart of the southern parts of the US. But I just have an eclectic background. I've worked in construction, I've worked in nonprofit, I've worked in government, I've worked abroad. I've worked for different areas of business, and throughout working, I've also obtained like five different degrees at the same time: organizational leadership, organizational psychology, general business, sales and marketing, master's in legal studies with an emphasis on corporate and healthcare compliance. I've gotten awards. I've written or in the process of finishing my first book project, Perfect Progression, which I know we'll talk about. Um, and just over the years, just with working with people, I've always had a thing of wanting to understand people, understanding who they are and why they think the way that they think, because I value people. And I find their stories to be so fascinating because you can literally see how their stories shape their entire decision making and also the process behind their decisions. You can actually see it in real time if you pay attention enough to look at people eye to eye when you ask them questions or ask them what they think. And I genuinely want to know what people think about any and everything under the sun. There's certain things I won't ask about because it's none of my business. But other than that, I love understanding how people think. And
So, let me interrupt. Sorry.
yes, yes, please.
Okay, this is so exciting. I can't wait to get into this. All right. So, you said that you understand people. Now, do you kind of understand people just by what they're talking about, or do you have a process that you yourself use to kind of study and, try to get to the root of what these people are saying in general? I mean, in general.
Both, both.
Okay.
One, I do naturally just understand people because I'm a master communicator. I love words. One of my favorite games to play as a kid, and even sometimes I'll play it now, is Scrabble. because I love terminologies, and specific terms mean specific things. And when people use the wrong terms in a sentence just to make it sound good or make it make sense, it usually doesn't. So one, that's that's the first part. The second part, the other part is astrology. So I love astrology and I love numerology. And if I look at a person's natal chart and I see what planet or zodiac sign they have is Mercury, because Mercury is the planet of communication, and there's two zodiac signs that houses that planet, which is Virgo and the feminine version of communication, and then there's Gemini, which is the masculine version of communication. So if I see their natal chart and I
And
see
I'm a
what
Gemini. So
see,
that's interesting because
yes,
you and I definitely clicked right from the very first conversation. And I
yes.
promise I'll try not to use big words to make this podcast sound really smart. I'll just be me. I promise.
Yes, I love that because I also have Gemini and Mercury. So if I see that someone, if I see whatever zodiac sign they have in their Mercury planet, then I understand even more so why and how they communicate the way that they do.
Wow, that's interesting. So, before we get into all of that, did you grow up this way? Like, is this what you wanted to do, or did you just wake up one day and say, "Hey, I'm going to be Stefany, and this is what I'm going to do," or did you actually have a plan? What was your
Uh,
plan?
oh gosh. No, actually, I didn't want to. I did not want to do this, not until my late 20s. It wasn't until my late 20s. And I'm not in the 20s anymore, so there's that. But no, I didn't want to do any of this. I didn't speak. I didn't really talk at all. I would tell people a lot of the times, any of the jobs that I've ever had, all of the jobs really. The first year, I never said anything other than good morning and good night. I never said a word. I didn't want to talk to people. I didn't want to talk at all. I didn't want to, I would never be able to do this in my 20s. I just didn't want to because one, people don't know how to communicate. Two, I did not want to get in the politics of the workplace. And then three, I'm very direct and blunt. So when I say something, I usually mean it. And in my 20s, I wasn't as nice and delivering a message as I am today. I would speak first before thinking and not consider another person's feelings, even though my intention behind my words is not to hurt a person or make them upset or offend them. Whereas now, I'm completely open. I will say things, and of course, I'm interviewing and I'll have conversations, but I listen way more than I do now than I did back then. And it was because of a game that I created for myself because I wanted to become a better communicator, which I will talk to you about that offline. I think you'll find it interesting.
For sure. I definitely want to know what this game is.
Yes.
So then, did you go to school for, well, obviously you did, if you earned all of these degrees, and what was the end result that you wanted?
Well, you know what? Gosh, when I first started college, my very first study was religious history. I wanted to understand that. I know. I wanted to understand why everyone was so crazy about their belief systems. And I mean, everybody. That's what I wanted to understand first. But I realized, you don't make a lot of money with it. So I changed and went into business. So I just learned about business as I was going through school and then also working at the same time. So I didn't really have a direction in terms of being here in business. It honestly worked out to where I have every aspects of a business in terms of degree and also actual physical knowledge. So I have it now, and here I am.
So while you were going through that whole process of going to school, did you find that it was emotionally um, fulfilling, to study what you were, because you just talked about your true love, which
Yeah.
is, astrology and things. And you talked about, so now you've talked about going to school and starting off with religious background, which is interesting since you came from
Uh-huh.
Mississippi because I mean that is the mecca for when
Yes,
it
it is.
comes to religious beliefs and things like that. So it's interesting.
Yes.
But yeah, did you get everything that you were hoping for?
Well, when I was studying for business, astrology was nowhere in there. It was just a habit. I just loved astrology and I loved the stars and I loved the numbers and it was just a love. It was just a hobby. It was something that I did whenever I needed to pass time. I just read up on it. So it's something I've been studying since I was like maybe 9 or 10. So I've been doing this for a long time with stars and all the other stuff with astrology. But business in my mind, it was totally separate. So I'm doing business. I'm also working for a company and I want to climb the corporate ladder per anyone that wants to excel, that's ambitious. And so naturally, my thought was if I gain these degrees, then I can open doors to obtain opportunities and climb the corporate ladder. Astrology, numerology had nothing at all nothing in the mix with that. So I didn't think those two belonged together. I thought they were completely separate and then everybody has their own belief systems. And I definitely didn't want to ruffle anybody's feathers because again, back then in my 20s, I was not as nice as delivering my message and I've always been direct. I think the directness has gotten even worse the older I've gotten. Although I'm nicer, I'll say that. I love everybody. I'm a lover. So so
Well,
yeah.
you've definitely made a great impression on me because, like I said, our first conversation was just so much fun and I've just enjoyed it and I thought for sure that you would be perfect for the mindset playground. I really did. Not just because, I need to interview another person, but I think that you have such an inspirational story. You really do. You have an inspirational story and sometimes I think people are they take themselves too seriously or the first thing that they think is it's my fault. This is happening to me because, you know, I'm too old or I don't know what I'm doing or, I'm a bad person and, but the 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 only thing that I have to say to people and I just said it in my interview is, life gets lifey and life happens for you, believe it or not to you. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
I say that same thing to other people. You have to, when are you going to start living as if life is happening for you rather than to you? And it's based on the choices that you choose to make. But I love the fact that you have the mindset playground because that is like a lot in itself. I mean, how did you even come up with that name, the mindset playground? Like, where did this come from?
Wow. So, okay, so I get it. You're turning this interview around on me. Okay, no problem. I love that. And maybe our audience will love that too for a change. So, what happened was back in 2023, 2023, yes, I wrote in a collaborative book called The Book on Transformation, and it was about a transformational period in my lifetime that I had to go through. So I wrote a story about that. And people were, of course, all the interviews and everything that came up with it. And people were reading the interviews and stuff or listening to the interviews. And I got this email. It was just the weirdest thing. I got this email out of the blue, and they said, how would you like to be the host of a talk show? And I was like, wow, I never thought of that. But they basically said, we think you'd be great and your presence on camera and people would love to listen to you and they kind of like really, played it up. And so I was like, well, maybe, this is something that I'd like to do. Well, I have to admit, I learned so much about podcasting. I never thought. And one of the things that I learned was that it's much easier to have people on your podcast than to just talk on your own.
Huh.
And so, right from day one, I've had guests on my show because that's what I was taught.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so true. I love having guests and I love finding out about people and I love talking to people and finding out what their story is and spinning that story into inspiration for others because there's so much negative out there. And I just want people to know that there's really a positive spin on things and they just have to come find us, right?
Absolutely. I'm 100% in agreement. I believe there's always a positive and a negative. Like we just have to see it. And I know it's challenging. Today it may be a bit challenging to see it, but it doesn't mean that it's not there. There's always a
Right.
positive and a negative. I'm a firm believer in that. That's another belief system of mine, aside from just, if you can dish it, you can take it. I'm a firm believer that there's a positive and a negative too. And I've
But
always
I was sorry. So back to how did I get Mindset Playground was I was taking a course through Jack Canfield and I was already certified by Jack Canfield, but I was taking another course and when it was a kind of a marketing course and to like to how to like market things and it was called gaining leads, so like it was like the lead lab or something like that, but anyway, and believe it or not, I just felt like I was trying to decide what it was, and I knew that there were a lot of podcasts out there about mindset, and that for sure I wanted something in there about mindset, and I wanted it to be centered around the Success Principles, which is the book that Jack Canfield wrote, and I was certified in the Success Principles. So I just decided that, you know what, I want it to be light and airy and fun. So that's where playground comes in because I used to love playing on the playground when I was a kid. So I just thought, well, you know what? This will encompass a lot of topics and people. And so it's perfect, in my
it fits
opinion.
you. It fits you. It fits you perfectly. I love that. Wow. I
Well,
love
thank
that.
you. Thank you for asking the question.
Of course.
Now, back to you. Okay, so when you decided to write your book, tell us about that. Why did you decide to write it?
Oh gosh. Funny thing about that is that I never even wanted to write a book. I know. I never wanted to write a book. What started that notion was, I want to say 22, the end of 22, no, the beginning of 23, 2023. I was on a massive project that was helping building or managing the communication build of a $2.7 million project. And I was the only woman on that project. And I had to work with 16 different companies and government and quasi government and private entities and residential folks, everyone impacted by this massive project. And I was dead smack in the center of it. And I had to make sure all the children played well together in the sandbox. And it's not easy to make sure, Jason, Chucky, and Freddy Krueger all got along together in the sandbox. It's really not that easy. But I made it work, and so well to where I ended up wrapping up my project like 3 months early. And I was saving those impacted by this massive project, especially companies. I was saving them almost $16,000 a month by accident. And they didn't even work with me. They didn't work for me. They didn't work underneath me. They were just impacted. But because I was so efficient at communication, I was so efficient at everything that I was doing and managing everything and everyone, that I was able to help other companies save $16,000 in their own business without having any understanding of what they do and how they did it. Just a little bit of information was enough for me to say, okay, this is how I would do this. And it worked for them. And ended up working for like 5 other companies in one particular section while working this other project that's massive. So, doing all of this, I was wanting to have my own business anyways, but I wanted to deal with something with communication, something with process improvement, because I do have a Lean Six Sigma background. So I wanted to understand the root cause of everything. And words is usually it for me. What's the root of a word? If you were using the term significant, the root of that will be big, because it is significant, is large, is big. So I want to understand everything from the root. And I remember speaking with another woman who's out of Florida, actually, and I was telling her the thoughts that I had. And at the time, they were just pieces of ideas that were scattered. And she actually helped me glue those together. And the first thing she said was, Stefany, you have way too much knowledge to give in just one particular area. You have to put it in a book. And I was like, well, I don't want to write a book. I have a library in my house. I have a library in my house. I will read books all day long. I have a library. I've always kept one. And she said, well, unfortunately, you have too much knowledge. You've done too much. You've worked in way too many industries. In state, you've worked overseas, you've worked for different industries. You have to put the stuff in a book. And so that's how I began writing the book, Perfect Progression. And I really wanted to focus on the mental, emotional, and physical aspects of a human being. And I understand that workplace dynamics and the workplace environment can really impact a person to the point where they are crying in the parking lot while on lunch. They are crying at home, or they're bringing that information or those feelings home, or they're taking feelings from home into work and it's impacting everybody else around them. And nobody has figured out how the two are even in alignment with one another, meaning the workplace environment, the work that's being done, and the output of it. Because how we feel at work will determine the quality of the work itself. Therefore, it will be communicated to the external customers, and they'll definitely give us their feedback via Google reviews. So, that's how I ended up writing the book. And I just used my experiences. And then I spoke with other women and I spoke with other men about their experience in the workplace and what they've seen, the years of experience. And I went to everybody, not just one particular group or one age group. I went to everybody from young to old and in between, and of all nationalities and backgrounds, and especially different cultures, because I really wanted to understand from a different country or a different perspective and culture, what are they seeing? What are they doing? And how are they adjusting to this particular work environment? And that's how I ended up finding out its perfect progression, because we're always striving for perfection, but we can never get it. But how to strive? We're progressing forward because we don't look at the things that we've accomplished as a progress. We don't take it as a win. We don't celebrate the small victories. And if we do, then we'll see that we have really been progressively perfect.
Wow. So you talk a lot about this misalignment,
Yes.
and especially in the workplace. And I know that there's like some early warning signs. So, but an organization will probably miss those warning signs. So, what do you think some of the early warning signs will quietly, you know, make this company go out of alignment? And why do leaders tend to miss them?
So it's funny you say this, because I'm currently writing a LinkedIn post right now that is called Standard Operating Procedures versus Standard Operating Practices. There's a difference. The SOP, Standard Operating Procedures, are a policy book or the day-to-day activities or actions that has to be done to complete a task. Whether it's a physical task, whether you're working on a car and you're making sure that the tires are on it correctly. Well, if you know anything about cars, and I'm going to use this as an example, if you know anything about cars, then you understand that the little light, the little triangular light with the exclamation point in there, that means there's something wrong with your tire. It could be a few things. It could be one, you have a bad sensor. So you have to take the tire off, replace the sensor. Or you actually have a nail in your tire. And if it's in the tread of the tire, then it can be patched. If it's on the sidewall of the tire, the integrity of the tire is gone. So you're going to have to replace the whole tire, depending on which, mechanic shop you go to. But from my experience and my knowledge, you need to replace the tire. Well, standard operating procedures on that particular tire or on that service itself, there's a step-by-step SOP you have to follow. Well, over time, standard operating practices comes in whenever we are short-staffed, Whenever our leader quits or is terminated or decides to retire, and there's no one to man the ship, there's no one to man that entire operations. That means the employees will figure out a workaround on how to fix that tire. If it's just, you know what, we're going to put air in it, that makes the light go away. And it does. The light will go off on your vehicle if you add air to the tire. But after driving for a while, the light comes back on. So you have to come back, which is rework. You'll have to come back to the mechanic shop and figure out exactly why is the light still on. And you were just there earlier and you put air in the tire. Well, they don't really want to take the tire off the vehicle because it's going to take a lot to take the tire off. Well, maybe they will. And if they do, maybe they'll find a nail. But if you dunk the tire in water, you'll be able to see the bubbles and you'll be able to see where the hole is. So I know that's like technical. I get it. But the workaround, the standard operating practices, one of the first signs that an organization can see that misalignments are there is if you hear the phrase, one, this is how it's always been done, or we're just going to do this. That's a clear indication that standard operating procedures are not being followed and there's some misalignments happening. When you leave, when you have your manager leave and there's no one there to actually guide the rest of the employees, employees will find a workaround to get things done. And if there's a busy peak or a busy season and there's no SOP to help those one-off situations, because there's always going to be a one-off where the rules aren't going to necessarily align with what's happening in real time. If that becomes a practice or a habit that a workaround is going to work, that's a misalignment error. That's a clear indication that that's a misalignment. And you need to put a SOP around those one-offs because now it's not a one-off because it's happening more than one time and enough to be counted to actually put into an SOP, standard operating procedure, rather than keeping it as a standard operating practice.
So why is it, do you think, that these business owners and managers will not see the warning signs well in advance then?
Because it works. So
Ah,
when standard operating practices work, think about the holiday season. And the holiday season, and it's a rush to get all these Christmas gifts together, to get all these sales out, to get your customers in the door. In the moments of those one-off situations, those standard operating practices work because the customer is no longer angry. Oh gosh, don't let it be an irate customer. The customer is no longer angry. The customer got what they wanted and what they needed, so they can go ahead and get out of the door. Now we can get the next customer in line and help them, and we can have these lines not be so long, and the wait time will be shortened. Well, when things calm down and we're back to some form of normalcy, standard operating practices continues to move forward, but it's causing more damage than it does good because they've made it into a habit. They've made it into a practice when really it's now replaced the procedure itself. And the procedure is now outdated because it no longer fits. And the company managers or leaders didn't know how to make the adjustment to real time actions. They didn't know how to adjust in real time because it was too chaotic.
yeah, and that's a good point. Now, I know that, and that kind of falls into the next question because you talk about multi-generational, the
Yeah.
multi-generational lens. So where do you see the biggest breakdowns happening between generations right now? Because that sounds to me like the leaders are just, everything is changing.
Yes.
Everything is changing. And where do you see that breakdown?
Several areas. Number one is communication. I made a post about this on LinkedIn a while back about how each generation communicates. So I said that the boomers don't even text them, call them or meet them in person, have coffee. That's how they like to communicate. They have an assistant that will do all that stuff. That's why they have their personal assistant. I said for the Gen X, they're very direct, stealth-like mission. For some odd reason, that generation reminds me of Virgos. So just very stealth-like, very direct to the point. Millennials, which is actually my generation, we are, let me make sure that we're all on board. Does everybody understand what it is that we're saying? Does everybody understand what it is that we're doing? Now, depending on the spectrum of that millennial, it will determine whether or not they're more into the stealth, or they're more into, I want to make sure everybody's on the same page, or they're more into the what's that? Gen Z, the Gen Zs. So it really depends. And also millennials, they're the one generation that happened with the shift of the internet. And so
Ah,
they're the one generation that happened with the shift of the internet. They knew a time before the internet, during, and now after. They're the only generation that has. So with the Gen Zs, they use letters to communicate. So they won't even say a full conversation. They won't use the full terminology to communicate. They'll use acronyms. And the acronyms we all don't know. I made a post and I put it all in letters. I used specific letters because I was saying something very vulgar and I did not. I did not translate that. But people understood what I said and they started responding to me in my comment section verbatim exactly what it is that I said. And so we had a whole conversation. So I had various conversations using the different generations of that example in my LinkedIn post in my comments by themselves. So I was able to move back and forth between the communication patterns of each generation to get some clarity. So that's one. How we communicate is different. The second thing, we're saying the same words, we just giving them different meanings. Third,
absolutely. That's so true.
thirdly, our beliefs. So there's a whole belief system of I've seen how my mom, my grandfather, and grandmother worked their entire life and didn't get anything. I don't want to work my entire life to not get anything or wait to the very end of my life per their belief systems.
Hmm.
I don't want to wait to the very end of my life to use all my money. Instead, I want to use my money now and go travel the world. And then, I might work at Walmart later, or I might not. I don't know. Just a thought. So they're more adventurous and they also saw how it broke down the body, how it physically made people sick, or how it mentally made them sick, or they saw that the older generation did not follow their dreams. They had all these dreams to do so much in the world, but they couldn't or they didn't because they wanted to make sure they had X, Y, and Z. So they also saw dreams being crushed and they don't want to do that. And they want more. We're in a different
Right.
time. And unfortunately, we're in a time where, for the first time in our lives, social is now in corporate. So, whatever's happening in our social setting, social world is now in the corporate space. And organizational leaders are not clear on how to manage because you can't conflict resolute this one. You have to manage social and corporate in one. Leaders don't
Wow.
do that.
Well, I think that because I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm actually a boomer. And but I'm at the end of that spectrum. So you're right. I saw the before and the after.
Mhm.
And I'm pretty lucky that I never gave up on my dreams. And I was a dreamer and I still am. And so I was lucky to do that. But you are correct. There's a large part of me that is, you get to that edge and you're afraid to go over that edge. And it's interesting because I worked at the same position or the same job for 36 years, which is unheard of
Yes.
nowadays. But I'm also the end of, which is sad, the end of the pension world. The pension world, the sick insurance and things like that. Like, I'm at the end of that and I understand that and I can see it. And it's really too bad. But
Yeah.
on one hand, it's a great thing because we stayed at our job so that
Mm-hmm.
we could have that pension.
Mm-hmm.
So we stayed there, whether we liked it or not. You stayed there and you did it.
And there's
And
something to be said for that, though. There's
right,
something to be said for that because I see the new generation as the new boomers. They're the new boomers.
Okay.
Because boomers taught us what loyalty looks like in corporate.
I agree.
Taught us what loyalty looks like. And I'm a millennial, so I think, I don't know, I might be in the middle, but I had a boomer who raised me. So I am,
Aha.
yes, I'm very thankful. And then, of course, growing up in the South and the country is totally different from living in the city. I think my population before I became an adult was like 10,000 people. And then after Hurricane Katrina, because that was so significant, my population of my town like doubled in size within a matter of a couple years. So I think we're still under 30,000 people today. But that those different individuals that have been on the end of the different generations or who have been raised by the boomers, they help us with shaping the future. And so I see the newer generations as the boomers because the boomers are, look, we tried and true, tried and true. If it's working, we're not gonna fix it. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Well, the newer generation is like, well, this is already completed. Why are we going here again? Why are we doing this again? Such similar characteristics. The Gen X and the millennials, I don't see much similarities there as them being their newer version of each other, but I do see the Gen Alphas becoming the Gen X, the new Gen X. I do see
Okay.
that because they are also like stealth like mission, stealth like we got to get this done, or steadfast in their own lane, very quiet and very observant, understanding, and ready to get things done in a strategic type of manner. I do see that with them. The millennials, I don't know. It may take another phenomenon for them to even be reborn again in a different generation because they are the one generation that saw the world before the internet, during the internet, and after the internet.
Right. Wow. And that affects the workplace.
It does big time because in the workplace with these different generations that's coming together, um, with us saying the same words, with us using the same terminology and giving different definitions to them, we're all we're also stuck to our own beliefs. And this is why it's important that company mission statements are very clear and company principles are very clear because that is what is going to drive the culture. That is your company culture, your company mission. But because social is embedded now in corporate, some odd reason, there has been a loss in company culture because of social and corporate coming together. But corporations already have their company culture. It's their mission. That's it. And so the misalignment is you've allowed social and corporate to come together in a mix of everybody's emotions, everybody's belief systems. Processes are not the same because as things change, we must also change. But if something isn't broke, we don't need to fix it, but it may not be in alignment with today's time. So, how do you detach the emotional attachment from that one process that isn't broken but isn't in alignment with today's time? Reach out and let me know how you feel.
That's, well, I think that that explains a lot. And I always say that if I had to do the job that I had to do or that I did for 36 years, and we had cell phones and social media back then, oh boy,
Mm-hmm.
because I came up through the whole, what happens at the workplace stays at the workplace,
Yes.
and the boys club. And maybe I'm going to get into trouble for saying this, but it's all coming out now. Like everything is coming
Oh,
out now, like there's a lot of company secrets,
yep.
and you just don't talk about anything. Like
Well,
I learned that, like everything is hush hush, and what goes on at the workplace, you just keep it at the workplace.
I mean, everybody loves Vegas. You go to Vegas, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Everybody loves Vegas for that reason. But here's the challenge: no one, including my generation, no one really took into account the level of access that we would have with the internet. We knew the
Right.
impact, but we didn't realize the level of access because I am not the only expert out there. And as a matter of fact, if I can't afford an expert, I'm going to go Google one.
How true is that? My
I'm
best
gonna
friend
go
is
Google.
chat. My
Exactly. I'm
best
gonna
friend
go
is
Google
chat.
my
Yeah.
next psychologist, and she's gonna tell me, or he's gonna tell me that I'm actually not crazy. That it's you guys' fault. You guys are crazy. That's what the psychologist that I'm gonna Google is gonna tell me. And now we have AI. And so AI is gonna tell us, you know what? You guys really are crazy. It is you, it is your fault. It is not my fault. But we are still human and we still have to take accountability for the good, the bad, and the ugly that we play in any situation. And I think that in today's world, a lot of us don't necessarily want to take accountability for the ugly. And the ugly is the parts that you can't believe you've done, the actions you can't believe you've taken, the words you can't believe you said, and you're trying to sit there and process it on the edge of your bed, replaying the events that led up to the moment of you sitting on the edge of your bed thinking about, I can't believe I did this. That's the ugly.
That is true. But I mean, there's a lot of factors.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm sure you agree. And I know that you know this, but there's a lot of factors at play. Like if I sit here and I say, oh, wow, I wish I wouldn't have done that. I mean, there's a lot of factors at play. First of all, my age, the fact that my frontal lobe wasn't developed yet, that's my biggest, and
Yeah.
now the fact that, I'm postmenopausal, there you go. So that's another factor. Like, do you see what I'm saying? So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
100% agree with you. And I am like a firm believer in intentionality. Like we have to be intentional on our choices, our decisions, whatever we choose to make. And I would tell my daughters all the time, do not be upset with the consequences because you are 100% okay with the choice you made. You cannot complain about the consequences. You are okay with the choice, you're okay with the consequence. Good, bad, or ugly, or whatever comes with it. We may have freedom of whatever, but we're not free from the consequences of our words. We're not free of that. And that's no one.
you know what? You're right on that. And the thing is that, that old saying, I wish I knew back then what I know now, and 20 and hindsight is 2020.
Absolutely.
That is so true. That
Oh,
is so
yeah.
true.
Yeah, if only I'd known what I know now back then, I would have made a different choice. But also, I don't believe in coincidences either. That's that spiritual side of me that don't believe it. I think everything happens the way it is intended and the way it is designed to do so. Um,
Absolutely.
we just have the choice how to respond.
Right. And they put people in your path. When you meet people, they put them in your path for a reason.
Yes, another saying, every person you meet is a representation of yourself, past, present, and future. So, which version of yourself are you meeting whenever you meet someone?
That's interesting. I
Yeah.
haven't heard of that one, but
Mhm.
now it makes me think. I
Yes,
thought I
every
was just meeting all you wonderful people because I have a podcast.
Mm-mm. It's because again, I'm a learner. I'm a lifelong student. I am learning about everything and everyone, and I do believe everybody I meet is a representation of myself, past, present, and future. I just don't know which version of myself I'm going to meet until I'm speaking with the person like you. I might be meeting my present self.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we could spend all day unpacking that. But let's talk about the book for a second, if we
Yes.
can.
Yes.
Okay. So, in Perfect Progression, which is the name of your book, when is it coming out? Or,
So right now, thankfully, my editing team and my design team have stopped fighting. We are in the final we are in the final editing stages. So as of right now, I know we're publishing this year, but I have not finalized the date yet. This week we were actually supposed to have our meeting, but they've been out sick.
oh,
So hopefully tomorrow we'll be able to meet and I can get an exact date. But we've been writing this for about a year now. We've had a lot of changes, a lot of changes. But I'm confident we're going to get it out this year.
so who did you write Perfect Progression for? And what do you want most readers to recognize in themselves? I think that's
Ooh,
a great question. Or their
man.
workplace after they close the final page.
Well, So my book, Perfect Progression, is centered around three women: Susan, Candace, and A. Marie. Um, and actually four, excuse me: Susan, Candace, A. Marie, and Mandy. And there's some male supporters or supporting figures in the book as well. So I didn't count men out. You guys are definitely in the book. And this is the first of many books because I have another book where I'm actually going to talk about what men go through in the workplace, where I'm interviewing men for that. But we'll talk about that as we get to it. But the different characters, they represent different personas. Mandy is the super aggressive, passive aggressive boss. Susan is the insecure supervisor. A. Marie is just the worker who wants to just do her job, show up, do her job, get her money, climb the corporate ladder, be that great employee. And then Candace is the person that's there trying to understand the different dynamics and help the workplace itself grow, develop, remain in the times, and go along with the changes that are needed as the world continues to unfold. So these women come together in one setting. And I wrote this book when I didn't want to write it. I was like, I have too much life at the time. I have too much life experience personally to write a book professionally. So I don't even know how I'm even going to do this. And thankfully, my writing coach at the time, she said, well, why don't you pull from the different people in your life and ask them for their work experience? And so I thought that would be best because I didn't want to write about myself. I didn't want to write about what I've seen alone. I wanted to write about what other people have experienced, what other people have seen in the workplace. And so segue into your question, who am I writing for? I'm writing for every person that has ever dealt with a passive aggressive boss, that has dealt with an insecure supervisor, that has dealt with a person or have been that person that just want to show up, do their job, go home, get their money, maybe climb the corporate ladder, or a person who's actually dealing with the changes in today's world in an organization that has a hard time with going with the times. I'm writing for all of those people. And if this has been you before, then you will definitely relate to the book. And maybe you have been stuck in your own life professionally and maybe even personally because those lines blur. So maybe this has been you at one point in time in your life and you want to know how to get out of whatever situation you're in from those lenses. This book will help you figure out how to do that.
Wow, that's amazing. So it's not just a leadership corporate book or manual, say per se, it's actually something that the ordinary person might want to read it and say, wow, oh, okay. And then you're going to obviously in the book. So, say, for example, if I'm Mandy and I recognize myself in Mandy's story, you're going to tell me how to get out of it, right?
Well, you might be a little naive if you're Mandy. Um, you might be a little shocked. You're Mandy because I've had my editors read my book right now as I'm in the final editing. Well, let me go back. I've had them read the book in the beginning before we started the final editing stages. And when we got on the meeting, they were sweating. And I'm looking at them, are you okay? Did you just get out of a sauna? Or it looked like they were done taking a run for the morning. Like they were upset at this character in this book. And the first thing that one of the editors asked me was, did this happen to you? Was this you? Like she was angry. So this book is going to stir a lot of emotions because I'm a realist and I deal in reality. And the reality of things are, as we said earlier, everybody likes a Vegas. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. But the outcome of Vegas, people that go to Vegas, they don't always become the celebrities. They don't always become the superstars. Instead, they end up in the park. So, in this book, when I'm speaking with the editor and she's sweating and she's upset, I told her, I said, I understand that this is stirring some emotions, but this is real life. This is what people are dealing with, and this is what people are going through, and it impacts them mentally. It impacts them physically and emotionally. And in turn, unfortunately, those impacts we see in real time, those impacts we see in real life, we all watch the news.
Right.
And so if you think about it and you watch the news, how many times do people go back on another person's journey of how they've been bullied, of how they've been talked about in the workplace, or how they hated their job, but they stayed. They hated their job, but they stayed for whatever their reasonings are. But then this is what happened as the end result of the impact of the workplace because they never did anything about it. So a person
Right.
who's reading this book and they're figuring out that they're Mandy, take a real hard look at yourself and do some healing because she's gonna make you mad. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Every editor that has ever read that book, and I do have a co-author too, so she's also helping in. But any person that's ever read the book that looks at Mandy, they've all been angry with her, and
Oh, wow.
they've been a little bit angry with me because they were like, "How could you this is so harsh." And I'm like, I know it is, but it's okay.
Well, don't worry. I just said Mandy's name because that's the only one
Right, right.
that I remembered that
Yeah,
popped
I
in the top of
mean,
my head. But
again, those are
yeah,
just the characteristics because we know these people. We work with these people. I mean, some of us are quiet about it, but that's also why I have my misalignment diagnostic. That tells you a lot. It's actually called Are You Smarter Than a 12th Grader? So I also am pretty comical. I have a dark sense of humor too, so I like to laugh all the time. But this assessment is actually a segue from that to help with figuring out where the misalignments are for different organizations and how to move forward. So
yeah, you do send those out, right? Those were you, we did talk about that, and you use those actually to work with businesses.
I
You
do.
ask them to fill out the assessment first.
I do.
So,
So how it works is if they realize, organizational leaders realize, you know what, something's off, something's got to give. Right now, they're not going to realize it because we're still in the new year. But what people don't know, fun fact, is only 9% of New Year's resolutions stay intact. So that
right.
includes businesses. So right now, everybody's still in the new year, new me spirit. Once they get out of that in March and April, then they'll realize that, you know what, something's off. Something doesn't feel right. Something's amiss. I don't know what to do, how to move forward, or anything like that. And that's where I would encourage people to go to my website, POEECC.com. There's a misalignment diagnostic. There's an investment to it. You click on it, you make the investment, you will receive an email, an intake form, because I need to know who you are, first and last name, company, number of individuals in your organization. Then you will receive, once you fill that out, then you will receive the assessment with an access code for you to enter into the assessment, take the assessment. You can send it to whomever you want in your organization with the same access code so they can take it. You give it back. The answers are confidential. I automatically get them. They're not given out to the organization. They're housed in my database and it's a confidential thing. Once I receive those, 3 business days after or later, after receiving everything, they will get a debrief summary based on where the misalignments are as it relates to people, leadership, and systems. After that, do what you want to do with the results. You want to toss them in the trash, you go ahead. You want to hire a strategic company or a consulting firm to figure it out, do your thing, whatever you want to do. But if you want me to do a deeper dive in information on what it is that I've found and how I got to that specific conclusion, in addition to the debrief summary, then that requires another level of commitment and investment. So that's how I get to that. And once we get to that point of this is what you want to do, I'm coming in and I'm chopping because we already know what the problems are. We already know where they exist, where they live, and how to move forward.
Wow, that's amazing. And you created this.
Yes, it took me 3.5 months to create it. All of most of Q4 last year and parts of Q3. And I went through 2 different psychologists to help me figure this out.
Wow, that's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank
That
you.
is amazing. You should do individual ones.
Really?
Yeah, do individual ones where you could tell us, okay, this is what happened and this is
Well, I thought about that from an astrology perspective into business, but I hadn't worked out the kinks on that one because I don't want to cross lines with people. This is strictly just knowledge, and I thought about doing that as it relates to communication. So that way, I can see how people process communication, how they interpret it and understand it, and how they communicate themselves. So, for example, if they have like Leo and Mercury, then they're going to be very fiery in how they say something and what they say, and they will not let up. Like it's always attention on them. It's always a look at me, look at me, look at what I'm saying, and they will hit you where it hurt.
Oh, geez. I know a few people like that. Don't we all?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I know that this could go on for hours, Stefany, because I love talking to you. And I'm sure everybody will enjoy listening to you as well.
Oh,
But
I hope so.
unfortunately, I ask all of my guests before we close out the show for three golden nuggets.
Oh my gosh. The first golden nugget I would say is number one, be unapologetically you, because you are what is needed in today's world. You are needed, you are wanted, you are important. I would say that would be number one. That's the first golden nugget that I have. The second golden nugget is don't be afraid to think outside of the box. There are some people who live outside of the circle where the box sits, and that's okay too. Your perspective is not the only perspective out there. It's okay to figure out what else is out there. Think outside the box. You'd be surprised at the solutions you come up with to whatever challenges there may be. And the third golden nugget I would probably say is be appreciative of where you are currently because it's taken a lot for you to get here. So pat yourself on the back.
Wow, those are some great three gold nuggets. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate that you've taken time to come and play with me on the Mindset Playground.
Thank you so much. I look forward to coming back. Thank you so much.
Yes, for sure. And I look forward to further conversations.
Absolutely. Thank
All
you.
right.